Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome this morning to Darren, who has given us some time. We're incredibly grateful. I think you're going to really enjoy this experience. I met up with Darren just before the holidays and thought, loved your story, Darren, about what's brought you to this space, but also really, really inspired about what you're doing. So before I talk anymore, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what brings you here today?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, first of all, Helena, for inviting me onto this. Well, look, my background is initially was quite conventional. I've actually been in teaching and education for 25 years. This is actually just heading into my 26th year in education. I was a teacher. I moved into headship. And then for about the last 10 years, I've been managing groups of schools internationally in the UK and all over the world. And the reason this is important is about a year and a half ago, I took on the interim headship of a school in Tunisia. And it was exactly the same time that ChatGPT came out. So literally, I arrived in November of 22, and so did ChatGPT. And I realized, because this school needed a little bit of help to be turned around, that actually AI could potentially help with it. And so I had sort of the freedom, I suppose, and the license to be able to really experiment with AI. And it actually was very successful. And so what I learned over the year that I was in the school and working with AI, particularly with ChatGPT and then Claude and then Google Bard and obviously now Gemini, I began to kind of learn a lot. We made lots of mistakes, and I began to write quite a lot about my experiences on LinkedIn and through my blog. And I think that got and through a podcast, and that got the attention of lots of people. So last summer, I moved back to the UK from where I was based in this school in Tunisia, focusing on helping schools to embrace AI, to understand AI, to learn what they need to do in a very practical way. And I try and keep my advice very practical, very grounded, not too theoretical, but obviously with one eye on, where we are now, where we need to be moving into the future, what some of the risks and challenges, but what also some of the opportunities are with AI.
Brilliant. And I love, what you're saying there. There were some words and I'm writing them down here, but you said at the beginning there, I had the freedom to experiment.
Yes.
Like why do you think those sort of keywords are
Yeah.
important for teachers at the minute with AI?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So the challenge so many schools have at the moment is that they don't feel they have a great deal of freedom. I was lucky in a way in that I was actually the chief operating officer, so I was almost managing myself, and the CEO was busy doing other things. And so she said, "Look, just go and just see what you can do." And so I did definitely have that license to be able to kind of do things that maybe ahead in a busy state school in the UK with has Ofsted pressures and Progress 8 and whatever they may struggle. So I think that whereas for me, I was able to accelerate my progress, and I was able to accelerate the use of AI in the school because I didn't have that pressure from external pressure. So I think that one of the things that we need to consider is, okay, so maybe we do definitely need to be mindful of Ofsted, and we need to be mindful, but we also need to recognize that even Ofsted itself are looking at AI. Ofqual are looking at AI. This is not something which we need to see as separate from, we're going to have a bit of experiment and play with AI, but then we need to do the serious day job. Actually, no, they're going to come together. So whereas at the time a year and a half ago, it was easier for me. Actually, it's going to become more of an imperative for schools to not necessarily fully embrace and experiment with AI in maybe the way that I did a year and a year ago, but be mindful of the fact that Ofsted will be looking in the future at how schools manage the risks and exploit the opportunities of AI. Ofqual will be and already looking at the impact of AI on assessment. And so actually, this is not something that you're going to see as being separate. This is something that you're going to have to begin to understand now, because in the next 2 to 3 years, you will be judged and you will be assessed on how you're dealing with AI in your school.
So what would you say to a teacher who's scared of that? That's quite a big
Um,
statement. And I know when we started Daydream, one of the things that stuck with me that a teacher said, and she said, Helena, the goalposts change every 6 months, but the resources don't. And
yeah,
you know, a lot of teachers will just see this as, oh, here's another goalpost change, you know,
Yeah.
something else we need to take on. So if I'm a teacher and I feel nervous about what
Yeah.
you're saying, what would you say to me?
So the first thing you need to do is make sure you've got your head on side, because unless the head is no, doesn't they don't need to know everything there is to know about AI. In the same way that a head doesn't have to understand accountancy to be able to manage the school's finances, it's the same thing. A head has to have an understanding of the importance of whatever it is. In this case, AI, or it could be safeguarding, it could be the finance. If your head is completely disinterested, then I think the first thing that I would suggest to any teacher, you need to understand this is probably the biggest opportunity you have to make a mark in your school and your career right now. Okay,
Mhm.
right now, because it's going to be those teachers who are AI literate, who understand how to prompt, who understand how to teach about AI. They're going to be the ones that see I believe their careers really take off, because it won't be long before heads need to understand this. How do you do this? Well, you need to understand a few things. One of the main things is that, as I said, with Ofsted and Ofqual, just read the reports, read the EU AI Act, read all of these things that are happening now. Get yourself into a position where you have the knowledge to then go to your head and say, look, we kind of need to look at this, and this is why. And the head says, oh, you're absolutely right. Brilliant. Because if you don't get your head leading this, and this is a big ask. I know if you're a new teacher, this is a really big ask, but you have to have the confidence. As a head teacher, I loved it when teachers came to me and said, I think we need to look at this. I think that's a really, really powerful thing. If you don't do that, the danger is you get what's happening at the moment across the world, which you get pockets of furtive generative AI use. Okay. You get teachers who are kind of using it in the background, but feeling a bit guilty about it, because teachers, we're naturally guilty. We have naturally guilty consciences. We all do. I mean, it's what we're motivated by guilt. It's just, it attracts that type of person. We're generally not kind of alphas. We're either betas or thetas generally. We're the lone wolves, or we just like to follow. We tend not to be that kind of alpha type, alpha personalities, just generally in teaching. So we tend to feel quite guilty. And so we need to make sure that we need to understand that if we don't get the leadership team kind of leading the way on this, we're just going to carry on with sort of using it furtively. Having said that, the second thing we need to consider is that actually it's not hard to start to use it. Even if you're using it furtively in the background, it's not hard to start using AI. So the first thing I would suggest, if you're a teacher, as I said, if you can speak to your head, do. If you can't, okay, you can still start using it. Just begin to use it very simply for what I would call level 1 tasks.
Mhm.
And I kind of break AI into 3 buckets, if you like. Level 1 is generating stuff. Okay, doing stuff that you can do yourself,
Mhm.
but AI can do it faster and actually doing it better and better. So the basic stuff, curriculum maps, schemes of work, lesson plans, resources, differentiated resources. It's already quite good at that. And you can tie it to the syllabus simply by uploading your syllabus to ChatGPT or Claude and going through a series of prompts where you get it to read the syllabus and then map the curriculum and map the scheme of work to the syllabus. So it's making sure it ticks all the assessment objectives, for example. And then you can get it to do some lesson planning. You can get it to do some quite interesting resourcing. So that's level 1. So I would say that the first thing that you can do as a teacher is just try that. You've got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Open up ChatGPT, click the little icon that uploads a document, upload your syllabus, and just say, I want to do this. Tell me how.
Yeah.
Literally, I want to create a scheme of work on Macbeth based on this uploaded syllabus. Talk me through how we go. What more information do you need from me? So you actually bring AI in as like a collaborative partner, and you say, I don't know the answers. I need you to tell me, explain to me step by step how we will plan a scheme of work. And it will actually do a really, really good job. So you don't even need to be very good at prompting. You just need to be confident enough to say, I don't really know how to do this. Can you take me through how to do it? And it will actually hold your hand right the way through the process.
Brilliant. And when, one of the things that we talked about before, Darren, we talked about the creative thinking qualification that we're running now, and we've got 60 plus high schools going to be delivering that
Mhm,
qualification. And looking at that across the UK, with it being the equivalent of a GCSE and an A level,
mhm.
why do you think creative thinking is and has become more important?
Yeah.
And how do you see AI supporting that uniquely kind of human skill, basically?
Yeah, so I think the more AI can take on the execution layer, just the producing the stuff,
Yeah.
actually the more time that we have and maybe the more freedom we have to be the entity that thinks about the what needs to be done in the first place and thinks about the solution and thinks about the steps to get there. Because if I know I have to do all of the writing and do all of the planning and do all of the detail, actually it's leaving me less time to think the big thoughts. And so actually, and that's what basically creativity is. Creativity is thinking of big thoughts to solve big problems in the world, which is what we need. And so I think that that's why if we're bringing AI into this creative process, it's not taking the place of our creativity. It's not if we use it right. I always talk about how I like to see AI kind of alongside me as a creative partner or behind me as a planner. So it's like a collaborative partner, or it's something that sits behind me and gets me to the point where I'm then able, for example, it might plan out a report, which I then write, or it might plan out a short story, which I then write, or it might, whatever it is, but it's sitting behind and beside me. I never allow it to sit between me and other people. So everything that you read that I publish is my writing. I never, ever publish that's written by ChatGPT. If I write a report or a proposal, for example, which I do a lot of, I will often get ChatGPT to draft that proposal because it's process writing. It's not creative. It's not representing me as a person. It's kind of I've got all of this bunch of research and I need to format it. And I know that I need to tick these boxes for the person who's going to read the proposal. Often I'll get AI to write that proposal for me and then I'll just adjust it. When it comes to anything creative, or if it's a piece of writing, if it's a blog post, if it's a LinkedIn post, whatever it is, it will always be me. So I think when it comes to creativity, keep it beside or behind you and just use it to get you to the point where you can then really go for it. And you'd be amazed at what you can achieve.
Brilliant. Okay, Darren. I mean, we could talk forever.
Yeah.
I think it's hugely inspiring for me what you're saying, and I felt myself a bit like the nodding dog, just nodding at everything you're saying. It's supposed to sum up. You're looking at the future of this too, and as much as any of us can see what's going to happen, where do you see potentially, even in the next 2 to 3 years, you
Yeah.
reckon education and AI will be?
Well, first thing is it won't replace teachers.
Yes.
And anyone who says that it will has no idea what they're talking about, because education and learning is such a profoundly human endeavor at its core. So I think what it will do is it will optimize the interaction between the teacher and the student, between the student and the student, between the teacher and the teacher. And what I hope is that we start to see an inversion of where we currently are. So we currently are is we have the teacher at the front, students, and I call it a fan model where you've got I'm the holder of the knowledge and I fan out my knowledge to you and you're going to, I mean, it even physically looks like a fan when you look at the classroom layout. What I'm hoping is I'm only saying begin because it will take time. We begin to see an inversion of that where essentially we've got more what we would look more like a hub and spoke model where we have the students sitting at the center and then we have all of this network of support around them. AI will be one. I can definitely see more AI chatbot support.
Mhm.
So for example, I'm a student and I'm in the class and I'm listening to the teacher. Great, I've taken on the knowledge. I go home, I'm doing the work, and I've got a chatbot sitting alongside me, which kind of is trained on everything the teacher knows. And I can just use that chatbot to kind of help me plan an essay or ask questions, for example. But we will also all have the teacher, we'll have the chatbots, but we'll have other students, we might have people from business. I'd love to see more business coming into schools, more industry coming into schools. We're going to see these kind of nodes of support sitting around the student. So the student's kind of sitting more at the center of the process. So we start, and I think if that's the case, we start seeing what is proper personalization, because we don't really understand when we talk about personalization, we don't really know what we're talking about half the time. I think we'll start to see a much more nurturing and supportive framework around students where they feel like they have more autonomy. And this is why I've called my company, my business is Autonomy AI, for that reason, because what I want to see is we actually, education becomes a process of creating autonomous individuals, who have determination, who are self-sufficient, who draw on people when they need and AI when they need, but also have the facilities and the ability to think for themselves and act for themselves. So I think that's, if I look in the next 2 to 3 years, that's what I hope we start to see.
Brilliant. Darren, listen, thank you so much. These are
My pleasure.
valuable insights. And I know in the travel guide, we talk about just bringing on compasses in a way, people that will help us navigate this very, very
Yeah,
different
yeah.
landscape. And it's been an absolute joy to speak to you today. Thank you
Thank
so,
you
so
so
much.
much. Thanks, Helena. Thank you.